At number 10, we have the time when Cyclops goes rogue and kills Professor X. We're used to Cyclops being a pretty grounded and proudly good-natured member of the X-Men. But when Cable brings news to the X-Men that he sees the end of the world in their future, Cyclops is convinced that he has to pit himself against the Avengers. There is a huge debate online about whether or not Cyclops is in the wrong in Avengers vs X-Men, so in some people's minds, he doesn't actually go evil during this storyline. However, considering he's normally aligned with the Avengers, this is a moment where Cyclops' allegiances change, and many of the good guys see it as a turn to the dark side. And later on in this storyline, Phoenix Force takes over Cyclops and he kills Professor X, which is a pretty clear act of evil, but I digress, it's the Phoenix Force. That's just what it does. At number 9 is when Angel goes evil. Angel was always my favorite of the X-Men, and he doesn't get brought up too often on this channel. So, here we are. Everything starts going downhill for Warren Worthington when his wings are amputated in an attempt to save his life. When this happens, Angel goes into a deep depression, having lost his primary source of power, flight. But good thing he's got a jet, so he takes off to try and feel that sweet, sweet air once more. But of course, he can't even have that. The jet is sabotaged by Cameron Hodge and it explodes. Everyone thinks Angel dies here, but he's actually teleported away and saved by Apocalypse. This is where he goes bad. And yes, it's because he's brainwashed, sort of, but it could also be argued that Angel had a lot of anger built up that made him susceptible to this transformation, due to the whole wings clipping thing. Either way, DM me and let me know if you agree or not. At number 8, we've got Reed Richards turning into the Maker. This turn to the dark side takes place in the Ultimate Universe, where the superheroes are sort of more serious, gritty versions of themselves. And when Reed proposes to Sue Storm and is rejected, he gets pretty close to the edge. But when Kang comes from the future and tells Reed that he's the only one who can save the Ultimate Universe, he makes it his duty to do some pretty nasty stuff, including killing his own family and faking his own death. And when the heroes catch on to this, they naturally take him out by throwing him into the negative zone. But when the Ultimates, the Avengers of this universe, realize the prophecy is true, they turn to Reed to save the universe. And, spoiler alert, they find out that it wasn't Reed, but Reed and Sue's son Franklin who would have to be the key to saving the universe. But Franklin was never born, because Sue rejected Reed. So boom goes that universe. Sad. Okay, at number 7 we have Bucky Barnes. Harkening back to World War II, Captain America and Bucky Barnes are teammates on the battlefield, zeroing in on scientist Baron Heinrich Zemo. But they're knocked unconscious in a battle with Zemo, and they're awakened just in time to try and catch up to a stolen ally plane that's taking off. As they catch up to it, only Bucky is able to hold on as it flies away, and Cap falls into the English Channel. But lucky for him, because the plane explodes, seemingly killing Bucky. But he isn't actually killed. After this, Bucky is fished out of the water by the Soviets with one arm missing. He's indoctrinated to hate the West and turned into the Winter Soldier. This is done all against his will, and he has no recollection of his old self and his prior allegiances, so it's not really his fault, but he goes evil nonetheless. At number 6 is Jean Grey turning into Dark Phoenix. This is probably one of the earliest examples of a superhero going bad that I can remember witnessing as a kid. Although this is an instance of Phoenix Force basically brainwashing Jean, I figured it would be blasphemy to leave Dark Phoenix off the list. Jean Grey is an extremely powerful telepath that exceeds all of Professor X's expectations, so when she is consumed by Phoenix Force, she becomes one of the most powerful and unstoppable forces in all of the cosmos. She traverses galaxies, absorbing energy from stars as she goes, and in turn takes out masses of life on various planets in what can only be described as super selfish of her. Throughout her time as Dark Phoenix, she has no recollection of her former self or even a proper sense of reality, so it's not really Jean Grey anymore, but something much more sinister. At number 5 we have Superboy Prime. This is one of the most significant cases of a superhero going evil because the cost of this turn is one of the most significant in any comic storyline, Marvel, DC, or otherwise. Superboy Prime is born on Earth Prime in the same way as Superman, landing in a cornfield, being named Clark, all that hubbub. except Earth Prime is part of a dimension that doesn't have any superheroes in it, except for Superboy. He's the only one. And when a multiversal catastrophe takes place that destroys hundreds of different worlds, Superboy teams up with a group of superheroes to try and save as many as they can. Basically, as you can guess, his homeworld, Earth Prime, is not saved in this process. And even during another process where they're able to create an Earth with an amalgam of 5 different Earth's histories, Superboy's is not one of those 5 either. So, to keep the story short, this basically drives Superboy into a jealous rage that he never really gets out of. It's a really sad story actually, and given Superboy Prime's insane level of power, it causes immeasurable harm to the cosmos for years after. At number 4, we've got Captain America. Now, there are a couple events that can be explored where Captain America changes sides, one of which being Civil War and the other being Secret Empire. The Civil War example is much like Cyclops' case, where he doesn't clearly go evil, but he does actively decide to take a stance against his former allies. The Secret Empire storyline, however, shows him definitely going to the dark side, but this isn't actually him, but a sleeper agent with allegiances to Hydra. For the purposes of this list, the Civil War example seems to fit better because it's a stance Cap feels like he needs to take for what, as he sees, the greater good. But it still isn't that evil. All I know is that when Cap mutters "Hail Hydra," it leaves a much more sinister taste in our mouths than him taking a stance against the Sokovia Accord. But let me know over on Instagram which one you think is a more legitimate turn to the dark side for Captain America. At number 3, it is Jason Todd. This is a classic tale of betrayal from the world of DC Comics. Jason Todd is introduced as Robin to Batman and spends years by his side. But during one fateful encounter with the Joker, Jason is captured and held in a warehouse where he is beaten with a crowbar until he's near death. Jason and his own mother blown up in a massive explosion at the hand of Joker. This Robin is basically presumed dead. Then, years later, when a mysterious character donning the moniker of Red Hood comes around, Batman and others soon learn that it is in fact, yes, Jason Todd, but he's not quite himself. Now in the retcon storyline, it's explained that Jason is found by Talia al Ghul and revived in the Lazarus Pit, leaving him in a coma for a year or so and his memory wiped. But he does hold on to a resentment that he was left behind by his former partner Batman and replaced without too much concern, and without any revenge being taken against the Joker. So there's something here that is often argued as being part of Jason Todd's motivation to become Red Hood and turn against Batman. Alright, at number 2 we have Scarlet Witch. First introduced as what appears to be a villain, Scarlet Witch is revealed to actually be good, and she joins the Avengers. Even though she does become one of the most powerful of the group, it may have been a mistake for her new allies to trust her perceived goodness so openly. It's not that she was faking it, but considering what ends up taking place, it could be argued that there was a decent amount of evil hiding right underneath the surface. During the event Avengers Disassembled, Wanda loses all her cool when she learns that her 2 sons are parts of the Devil's Soul. This, naturally, enrages her and she takes it out on the Avengers. And she doesn't pull her punches either, actually killing Hawkeye, Vision, and Scott Lang. Finally, at number 1, we have the one we all know, Superman's turn to evil in the Injustice storyline. This is a pretty popular event and very significant as well, involving such a powerful hero as Superman, so I figured it needed to be put at number 1. For those who don't know, this turn that Superman takes is a result of him being tricked into killing Lois Lane and destroying all of Metropolis with a nuclear bomb. Yikes. It's Joker's final trick, and it's a doozy because it is enough to turn Superman against his own philosophies and resort to killing as a means of justice. He starts by taking out Joker there and then, but continues his reign of evil by recruiting other heroes to join him on his path of destruction. What makes this turn so crazy and memorable is that Superman isn't entranced by any otherworldly possession or under the spell of some kind of enchantment. He himself has justified his own evil actions. He truly feels in this moment, and forevermore, that he has no choice but to become evil, and convince some others to join him too. Alright, at number 10 we have the very silly but nonetheless evil Super Enemies. In the 1970s animated TV show Super Friends, there's an episode in 1979 called Universe of Evil, where Superman travels to an alternate universe to meet the evil counterparts to the Super Friends, very creatively named the Super Enemies. And the team is made up of all those bad guys we've all known so well and grown up with. You know, like Aquaman with an eye patch, and tinted red Batman, and oh, who could forget the iconic alien monkey Gleek? What a trailblazing team of supervillains they were. But as much as I roast them, they do actually pose a decent threat to Superman in this storyline, to the point where they team up with the military armed with kryptonite weapons, and even bring in their own version of Superman, giving our Superman a good old run for his money. But luckily, Superman Prime finds something called an antimatter flask, which turns all the super enemies back to being good again. Thank God Aquaman retires that eye patch and is no longer so intensely menacing looking. What a relief.
Number 9. Justice League of Assassins. Unfortunately, this evil Justice League didn't stick around too long. Being first introduced in Superman Volume 4, number 15 in March 2017, the Justice League of Assassins on Earth 14 were a group of augmented, mostly non-superpowered soldiers led by the obviously powerful Superman. The team was made up of Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Flash, Batman, Harley Quinn, and Green Lantern. With the exception of Superman, their powers relied mainly on weapons and technology, but primarily they used advanced firearms. Ultimately, they were all slaughtered, with this Superman being kidnapped by Prophecy, which is a shame, because this team looked super cool and they seemed to inhabit a pretty dark and grim looking post-apocalypse. Could have been very interesting.
At number 8, we have the Conglomerate. This group is basically a bizarro version of the Justice League created by Booster Gold. The group is formed after Booster's departure from the Justice League International due to a lack of respect from his peers. When Booster first fails to bring together a competent group of heroes to form the first iteration of the Conglomerate, someone named Claire Montgomery comes in to manage the group. With her, she brings along the likes of Deadeye, an alternate Green Arrow, Fiero, a guy with fire powers, Frostbite, an ice power guy, Elastaman, a stretchy man, Element Man, much like Metamorpho, Scarab, a knockoff of Blue Beetle, and Slipstream, a dollar store Flash. When they engage in a small friendly skirmish with the Justice League International, the fight quickly turns serious, and everyone learns at once that these new members have actually been brought from an antimatter world called Quard, and they're basically just entirely evil, and always had been. Luckily, the JLI take them down, but it's a close one.
Number 7. Squadron Sinister. This isn't so much an evil alternate Justice League as this team actually appears in the Marvel universe. But I'm gonna count it because I'm just stubborn like that. The original Squadron Sinister was created as a sort of obvious play on DC Comics Justice League characters Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, and the Flash, with the characters Hyperion, Nighthawk, Dr. Spectrum, and the hilariously named Wizard, respectively. The team was created by the Grand Master after he encountered the Squadron Supreme, and they first appeared in Avengers number 69 when they were pitted against the Avengers in a game between the Grand Master and Kang the Conqueror. They're bad guys who are counterparts to 4 members of the Justice League. I gotta stop justifying my reasons. They're on the list. Argue with me down below if you don't like it.
Alright, at number 6 we have the Justice Lords. Appearing in the animated series Justice League in the episode titled A Better World, this evil team is led by a radicalized Superman. Radicalized because he witnesses Lex Luthor murder the Flash and threaten nuclear war. So, Superman decides he'd abandon the typical hero's code of conduct and kill the bald tyrant himself. And in this alternate universe, Lex Luthor isn't just some super rich supervillain working away and hiding. He's actually worked his way to becoming the President of the United States. So, after his death, there is a power vacuum to be filled. And who would be better rulers than this evil alternate Justice League? No one. They didn't think so anyway, so they take over and put in place a totalitarian government with the justification being that they are protecting humanity from itself. And they start calling themselves the Justice Lords, which, I mean, you should sort of know you're the bad guys when the word Lord is in your title. Luckily, the real Superman is able to catch on and take them out of power before anything goes too far.
Number 5. Injustice League. Okay, so we have the Crime Syndicate of America, but there was also a team of villains put together to fight that team of villains. So, sort of technically making these villains heroes, but also not really because they're still villains. Right? The important information here is that the Injustice League, at least the one I'm referring to, was formed to combat the Crime Syndicate of America from Earth 3. The team's villainous members included Bizarro, Black Manta, Black Adam, Catwoman, Deathstroke, Sinestro or Parallax, Captain Cold, and they were formed and led by Lex Luthor. The team first appeared in Forever Evil number 3 in January of 2014 when the Crime Syndicate of America invaded the Prime Earth universe and tried, and very nearly did, take over the world.
At number 4, we have the Injustice Syndicate. I know, lots of groups with Syndicate and Injustice in their names. Well, that's because this evil version of the Justice League actually exists as a sort of combination between the Injustice League and the Crime Syndicate, both of which are included in this list respectively. Appearing in Batman the Brave and the Bold, in the episode called Deep Cover for Batman, Batman manages to travel to their evil dimension and infiltrate their operations disguised as Owlman. He sees that this group comprises of an evil version of himself, along with other evil alternate versions of other heroes he knows and works with. While eavesdropping, Batman learns of their plans to, destroy other universes entirely, which of course, he feels is something he needs to put a stop to. And it can't wait, naturally. So he decides to take all of them on himself, and because he's Batman, and it is his TV show after all, he wins. Those universes can thank him later.
Number 3. The Joker League. In Emperor Joker number 1 of October 2000, the Joker has gained 99.99% of the reality warping powers of the 5th dimensional being, Mr. Mxyzptlk, and he used them to completely warp the world into an insane offshoot of our real world. In this Joker world, he has put together an evil, insane version of the Justice League called the Joker League of Anarchy. The team members include some characters we've seen before, such as Bizarro number 1, Enigma, who's the Riddler, Gravedigger Lad, who is actually Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lane, Harley Quinn, and Poison Ivy. He has also created completely new characters that are wholly original to this story: Ignition, Bounty, Schism, and Scorched. He even has Lex Luthor as a jester. They are basically just the henchmen of this already pretty much all-powerful version of the Joker. Just another way of keeping him entertained, it seems.
At number 2, I'm putting the Injustice League from the video game Injustice: Gods Among Us. Most of us already know how this story goes, but in case you don't, this is one of the cooler and more well-written storylines about an evil alternate version of the Justice League. In most cases on this list, these evil groups are created by an alternate reality, which is always fun but pretty simple to come up with. But this storyline shows a radicalized Superman leading the Justice League to the dark side. And like I said, this isn't because he's an evil version of Superman or one that's possessed by some evil force. He's genuinely turned to evil after the Joker tricks him into killing Lois Lane. So to combat this new unexpected evil force, Batman decides to bring in other members from the Justice League from another universe, and the result is some pretty great fighting gameplay. And right as the game was being released, a comic book series of the same name was also being released in tandem, serving as a prequel to the game. Where you can derive general story points from the game itself, most of the backstory I just explained actually comes from the comics. It's cool to see the video game and comic book worlds working in tandem, and they make a pretty cool new storyline that I figure has to be ranked pretty high on this list.
Number 1. The Crime Syndicate of America. The Crime Syndicate of America hails from the strength-obsessed Earth 3, and is a twisted, evil version of many characters who make up the main universe Justice League of America. Its members include Ultraman in place of Superman, Thomas Wayne Jr., aka Owlman, and Alfred Pennyworth as the Outsider, Superwoman, who was Lois Lane at one point and Donna Troy at another, the cowardly Harold Jordan and vengeful John Stewart, who are both Power Ring, which are evil Green Lanterns at different times, John Allen and John Chambers separately also as Johnny Quick, Atomica, Sea King, Deathstorm, Grid, and John Johns. They come into contact with the main universe many times, and they almost always spell out bad news, as you'd expect from the antithesis to the Justice League of America. Number 10. Age of X Avengers. In the Age of X storyline, the mutant population were feared, and after a phoenix-shaped explosion leveled Albany, the culling of the mutants began. In response to this, the mutant Magneto used his powers to literally steal several buildings from New York and form Fortress X, a safe haven for mutant kind. This led to the creation of a team of non-mutant heroes by General Frank Castle, and led by Captain America, to hunt down this resistance of mutants. The team was made up of Captain America, Ghost Rider, who was killed prior to the actual assault on Fortress X, the Hulk, Invisible Woman, Redback, who is this universe's Jessica Drew, and Iron Man / Steel Corps. While the team murdered a lot of mutants, Cap eventually called them off to instead defend the mutants, which activated Steel Corps' Code Omega, causing them to take him out. There was also Plan B, which was the 2 megaton chemical that was carried by the Hulk. Luckily, the mutant population survived this twisted Avenger team.
Number 9. Ultimate Avengers. Not to be confused with the Ultimates, who are very much their own thing. This team of Avengers is actually called the Avengers, but is not the Avengers equivalent from the 1610 Ultimate Universe. Are you confused yet? Basically, in the Ultimate Universe, the Avengers team that we know and love from 616 is a little different, including in name. On Earth 1610, the Earth's mightiest heroes go by the name of the Ultimates, and are pretty buddy-buddy with S.H.I.E.L.D. and its director Nick Fury. However, there is a team in this universe that uses the Avengers moniker, but they are quite different from the Avengers we know from Earth 616. On 1610, the Avengers team is more like DC's Suicide Squad. The team is made up of characters who are seen as more disposable by S.H.I.E.L.D. and who are more anti-heroes or just straight up villains. They are a black ops team who is usually brought on for less publicly marketable missions and jobs.
Number 8. Deathlok Nation. On Earth 11045, the superhumans grew out of control. They began to take the law into their own hands, more and more, acting as judge, jury, and executioner. This led to popular support from the people for Operation Deathlok. Operation Deathlok was a plan conceived by Weapon Infinity of the Weapons Plus breeding facility called the World, to convert all superhumans into Deathloks. The project began small, with a few normal human Deathloks, and then those Deathloks targeted specific heroes who were killed and then converted into super Deathloks. No hero could stand for long, and soon, all superheroes were converted into mindless police robots, which actually resulted in a utopia. Eventually, these Deathloks began spreading into other timelines and realities, only to be stopped by Apocalypse. This eventually led a team composed of Deathlok, Captain America, Cyclops, Spider-Man, Elektra, Hawkeye, and the Thing to come into conflict with Earth 616.
Number 7. Cadaverous' Avengers. Cadaverous' Avengers were part machine, part man, and all influenced by the villainous Cadaverous. They show up in whatever alternate world J.J. Abrams and his son Henry Abrams' Spider-Man series is relegated to. I don't think it has an official number yet. It does have a temporary reality number though. This team seemed hell-bent on getting revenge on Iron Man, the only surviving Avenger left in this world. Well, I guess Peter was still alive at this point, and I mean, he's normally a part of the Avengers team, at least at some point, but I mean, in terms of the standard Avengers cast, we've all come to familiarize ourselves with through various forms of media, including the films. I mean, especially the films in this case, just based on the roster. These villainous corpse versions of the former heroes face off against the old Iron Man, Ironheart, Spider-Man's son Ben Parker, and his powerless but enthusiastic friend and love interest, Faye Ito, or is it Ito Faye? Needless to say, these evil counterparts at least weren't in control of themselves, but instead were being influenced by Cadaverous to fight against their former friend and colleague with the use of old Stark Tech neurochips.
Number 6. The Gatherers. The Gatherers are a team of former Avengers of different alternate realities who survived their world's destruction, tricked by an alternate reality Black Knight named Proctor into believing that their world's Circes were to blame. Proctor united them together and gave them a single enemy, the Circe of Earth 616. The team consisted of alternate reality versions of Proctor, Rick Jones, the Thing or Korg, Swordsman, Black Panther, and the Vision, as well as some unknown original villains. But for them to carry out their vengeance, each member had to kill their Earth 616 counterpart within a certain amount of time, or they would die from cellular breakdown. What the members of the Gatherers did not know is that their leader, Proctor, was responsible for the destruction of each world they are from, as he drove that world's Circe into madness, causing her to lash out and destroy everything around her, all because of a bad breakup. Damn, dude!
Number 5. Android Ultimates. The Android Ultimates come from Ultimates 3. They make their first appearance in issue number 4 of the Ultimates 3 series. This is where we first learn that these Ultimates aren't really the Ultimates at all, but replacements built by Ultron to act just like them. His plan is to use the team of robotic hero impersonators to destroy man and help the machines of the world rise up. Really all machines too. There's a weird part where they're talking about like, we as machines are just seen as these tools. Us toasters, we will unite. It's like very strange. Of course, the Ultimates themselves will have a few things to say about that whole plan. Ultron styles himself after his father Ant-Man, but he and his team wouldn't make it past the next issue. It would later be revealed that their leader Ultron wasn't actually fully in control, but instead was being puppeted by Dr. Doom. So many reveals where people are actually being controlled by someone else.
Number 4. Undead Avengers. The living are not welcome on Earth 666, and the world is only consisting purely of the dead, undead, or supernatural beings. Vampires, werewolves, mummies, and more all exist here, and each group is divided into separate factions. But don't fear, the greatest heroes from across these groups are assembled together to protect this world. They are the Undead Avengers. This team is so cool. A Captain America who never recovered from being a werewolf, a part spider Natasha Romanoff, a devil Daredevil, a mummified Thor the Accursed who wields the backwards Mjolnir that casts black anti-magic energy, Vampire Wolverine, Hawkeye, Franken-Castle? I mean, come on. These guys come into conflict with Captain Britain when trying to defend the Orb of Necromancy in order for them to spread undeath across all of reality. And they first appear in Secret Avengers number 33.
Number 3. Dark Avengers. The Dark Avengers technically hail from Earth 616, but they are a completely alternate team when it comes to their roster and in general their backstory and motives. Well, that is, in a way, the Dark Avengers do attempt to do good, but they are just all approaching it from a more villainous side. And many of the team members don't do good for the sake of doing good, but have their own ulterior motives. So can we really call that good? That's a philosophical question for you. The Dark Avengers were introduced when Norman Osborn was given reign over the heroic team after he'd been declared a hero for killing the Skrull Queen Veronki. Aside from getting to build his own Avengers team, which would replace the previous one, S.H.I.E.L.D. had been disbanded and Osborn was allowed to create his own organization to replace it, using the acronym HAMMER, which really doesn't stand for anything. Osborn just thought it sounded cool, so that's not really an acronym, it's just capitalized letters at that point. He pulled together his own Avengers team, which publication-wise became known as the Dark Avengers, composed of various Marvel villains, anti-heroes, and misled heroes in some cases, or heroes who were just like really lost at the time, who Osborn united when the standard Avengers hero members refused to join his team. He did try though. He was like, hey Carol, come be on this team. She was like, hell no.
Number 2. Zombie Galacti. I think most of us are familiar with Earth 2149, which is the home of the Marvel Zombie storyline. Here, a separate reality zombie-infected sentry was sent by his Earth's Watcher. The Avengers were the first on the scene and quickly died or were infected, with the rest of the population falling quickly afterwards. Once the Herald of Galactus, the Silver Surfer, showed up to announce the arrival of Galactus, he was consumed by Hulk, Wolverine, Spider-Man, Iron Man, Giant Man, Power Man, and Captain America, who absorbed his powers and used it to toast other zombies to improve their flavor. Gordon Ramsay would not approve. The Zombie Galacti used the machine to unite their power cosmic to take down Galactus, and after fighting their zombie villains, consumed and absorbed his power too, using it to spread the infection throughout the whole of their universe.
Number 1. Revengers. The Cancerverse Avengers, known as the Revengers, hail from a reality where the world was turned upside down by the fact that death was defeated. I know, how can you kill death? Well, apparently when you make deals with elder god-like beings, anything is possible, like what happened here. And a bit to save Captain Marvel from life-threatening cancer, a deal was struck with the many-angled ones. As a result, Death ended up dead, which actually resulted in the whole universe becoming a perverted version of itself. You'd think without Death around, the universe would become like a paradise. But no, it became rank with disease that spread and basically couldn't die, becoming known as the Cancerverse. All the heroes who remained here were made to serve the many-angled ones, becoming their loyal servants and attempting to invade other universes eventually and conquer them in the name of their Lovecraftian horror-esque gods, Avengers included. Or Revengers included.